When I turned 18, I completed my shift and finally gained my wolf. The Leaking King of the Northern Tribe, Carl Gilmore, my father's close friend, handed me photos of his sons and told me to choose a mate. Whomever I chose would become the next Leaking King. Without hesitation, I pointed to his eldest son, Sven Gilmore. Everyone was stunned because everyone knew, for years, I had always loved the third son, Eric Gilmore. I'd trailed after Eric like a shadow, declaring loudly to the whole world that I'd marry him someday, that I'd be his mate. In my previous life, I did marry Eric, and he did become the next Leaking King. But a year into our marriage, he betrayed me with my stepsister and got her pregnant. Furious, the old Leaking King forced her to abort the pup and exiled her to another pack. From that moment on, Eric despised me. He started bringing home a different mistress every night. I was furious, helpless, and eventually, I died in the dead of winter. I never expected that when I opened my eyes again, I'd be back at 18, standing at the very moment I was meant to choose my mate. This time, I won't choose Eric. This time, I'll step aside and let him have his love with my sister. But why did Eric break down in tears when I chose someone else, begging me to come back? Chapter 1. The sons of the Leaking King's royal family stood outside the council chamber waiting. The moment I stepped out of the room, they instinctively parted to make way. Eric stood at the center of the group. Laughter and teasing broke out among them. "Elsa," one of them called out, grinning. "You've been saying since we were pups that you wanted to mate with Eric. Looks like your dream's finally coming true, huh? The Olsen bloodline is at least the third largest pack in the Northern Tribe. Was it really necessary to chase after Eric like that? Practically throwing yourself at his feet?" Eric's eyes locked onto mine, his gaze sharp with amusement. "No mockery. Elsa, if you're so desperate to claim me as your mate, fine. But I have conditions. I'll only form a mate bond with you if you submit to them. Refuse, and no matter what pact our families made years ago, I'll still reject you." The disgust in his eyes was all too familiar. In my past life, I saw that look every day as he paraded his mistresses through our home. Now seeing it again, I felt nothing but indifference. That sharp sting of betrayal from my previous life was gone. "Eric," I replied calmly, "our families may have sealed this pact when we were pups, but no one says my fangs must bear for you alone. You have an older brother, a second brother, and even a fourth. There are others besides you." The moment the words left my mouth, his face changed. A flicker of panic flashed across his expression. His brothers, meanwhile, looked intrigued, eager even. The pact between the Gilmore and Olsen bloodlines had been settled long ago by our parents, and the old Leaking King had publicly declared that whoever formed a mate bond with me would inherit the title and become the next Leaking King. After a long silence, Eric let out a sneer. "Elsa, haven't seen you in a few days and now you're playing hard to get? You think signaling you might choose someone else will grab my attention?" At that, the other brothers looked visibly disappointed. To them, it was unthinkable. I had followed Eric around since I was 10, loudly proclaiming I'd be his mate someday. How could I possibly choose anyone else? "Eric," one of them said with a chuckle, "once you're the next Leaking King, don't forget to put me in charge of logistics and trade." "Eric, the future depends on you." As their flattery poured in, Eric looked smug, like he already wore the crown. Eric's lips twisted into a smirk. "Elsa, you've been my little shadow for years. The entire Northern Tribe knows you're obsessed with me. Who else would even consider claiming you now? Ah, and my first condition," he added. "I've already pledged my heart to Audrey. You will not interfere. But don't worry, publicly, you'll still wear the title of Luna." Ice flooded my veins. This wasn't how it happened before. In my past life, he'd hidden his affair until a year after we were bonded. So why was he telling me now? Unless the moon's curse had brought him back too. I opened my mouth to press him for answers, but just then, Audrey ran over. "Elsa, what are you and Eric talking about?" she asked, though her eyes never left Eric. The way she looked at him, so full of affection, wasn't that of someone speaking to her sister's fiancé. It was the gaze of a longtime lover. Before I could react, Eric yanked her against his chest. Audrey let out a performative whimper, twisting half-heartedly, but her eyes locked onto mine, flashing with primal triumph. No, Eric, you're my sister's mate. We can't do this. I've made my terms clear, Eric said, turning to walk away with her. If she can't accept our relationship, then I won't bond with her. As they walked off, I looked down at the photos still in my hand. Eric, you may have been my choice in a past life. But this time, I choose someone else. Chapter 2. The banquet had all but ended, and most of the guests had already left when Eric finally reappeared, dragging Audrey along with him. She had changed into a new evening gown. A silk scarf tied loosely around her neck, barely concealing the fresh love bites beneath. She glanced at me with smug defiance and leaned forward just enough for me to see them clearly. Everyone present could tell what the two of them had just done. Their gazes flicked between us, hungry for drama. In the past, I would have stormed over in a rage, slapped Audrey across the face, and screamed at her for stealing my man. Then I would have gotten into a shouting match with Eric like some desperate, jilted woman. And I had many times in my previous life. But now? I couldn't care less about what they'd done. I turned to leave. Eric, clearly unsettled by my indifference, stepped forward to block my path. Elsa, when did you become so rude? He sneered. I'm your fiancé, and you can't even be bothered to greet me? Audrey just tried to talk to you and you ignored her completely. Didn't your family teach you any manners? Apologize to Audrey. Otherwise, don't even think about receiving your birthday gift. He held a jewelry box in his hand. Beside him, Audrey sneered. Elsa, this necklace was custom-made just for you, by your dear fiancé. She tilted her head proudly, revealing a 10-carat ruby necklace glittering at her throat. As for the necklace inside the box, it was just a cheap iron chain. Custom-made, I said with a laugh. Since when did the Gilmore bloodline become so poor that a necklace worth a few bucks counts as custom work? Now that ruby necklace around your neck, that's the one that looks truly bespoke. What you're trying to give me for my birthday must be the free gift with purchase. Eric's face darkened. It's not about the price. It's the thought that counts. Why are you being so shallow? Just take it. He reached out to hand me the box. I didn't take it. The necklace slipped and hit the floor with a dull clink. The thought that counts? In my last life, I received plenty of his thoughtful gifts. Woven grass rings. Inflated plastic hearts that cost mere cents. Compared to those, this necklace was the most extravagant thing he'd ever given me, probably worth a whole $5. But I had cherished every single one of them because they came from him. I'd carefully stored them away like treasure. On the night of our bonding, I'd even shown them to him with pride, telling him how I had kept everything he'd ever given me. I hadn't expected him to look at me like I was pathetic. Elsa, he'd said, full of disdain. Those were just random junk I gave you on a whim. And you kept them like they were precious? Have you never seen anything decent before? My heart had shattered. Before we bonded, he treated me with some decency. But after, all he offered was cruelty and ridicule. Worse, he'd turned it into a joke and told everyone about it. After that, people looked down on me, their new Luna, with nothing but scorn. Remembering how I'd once been the laughingstock, I turned to leave. I couldn't be bothered with him anymore. But Eric grabbed my arm, refusing to let go. Pick up the gift I gave you, he demanded. If you don't, I won't bond with you. I'll make Audrey my Luna instead. I stared at his arrogant face, and coldly pulled my arm from his grasp. And if I don't bond with you, I said, do you really think you'll still become the next Leakin King? His face paled for a moment, but he quickly regained composure, giving me a contemptuous look. Everyone knows you've been obsessed with me for years. Even when I pushed you away, humiliated you, you still clung to me, telling the whole world that you'd marry me no matter what. You said no matter how I treated you, you'd still love me. That's something. Everyone in the Northern Tribe knows. You groveled after me so pathetically. My brothers wouldn't even look twice at you. Who else can you marry if not me? Then, as if a thought struck him, he leaned in and added mockingly, well, maybe my eldest brother. He's been sick for years, hiding in the mountains. Probably never heard the stories of how desperately you chased after me. Maybe he wouldn't mind taking in someone who used to be such a simp. But he doesn't even have a wolf. And he's half dead. Do you really think your family would let you marry such a worthless man? He straightened and gave me a smug, self-satisfied grin. His expression said it all. You have no other choice but me. Chapter 3. I was just about to fire back and tell Eric outright that I was going to marry Sven. But as I looked up, I caught sight of the Leakin King, Carl Gilmore, standing not far away. He shook his head at me in a subtle warning. That's when I suddenly remembered our conversation. Elsa, I know your heart belongs to Eric, he had said. I don't know why you chose Sven to be your mate, but it's all right. I'll begin preparing for your bonding ceremony immediately. Before the ceremony, Sven will undergo a rehabilitation surgery. That way, he won't have to sit in a wheelchair when the time comes, but keep that between us for now. I looked up toward the second-floor balcony. Sven stood there silently, golden hair and blue eyes calm and steady as they rested on me. As the Leakin King's eldest son, Sven wasn't born weak. On the contrary, he awakened his wolf at the age of 10, and was once hailed as the strongest heir. But later, due to a carefully orchestrated betrayal, his wolf was sealed, and the resulting backlash left his body severely damaged. In my past life, I remembered clearly that less than 6 months after I bonded with Eric, Sven passed away. Why aren't you saying anything? Eric sneered behind me. Did I hit the nail on the head? He let out a triumphant laugh. Face it, there's no one else for you to marry but me. So stop playing hard to get. It won't work. I love your sister, Audrey. I'll still go through with the bond, but don't even think about bullying her. If you do, I'll call off the bonding ceremony. I didn't want to waste another word on them. Our bonding ceremony was in just 1 week. Sven was likely still recovering from surgery and wouldn't have time to handle the preparations, so I needed to start organizing things myself. As I turned to leave, Audrey suddenly grabbed my arm. Elsa, Eric and I truly love each other. But now that you like him too, I understand I was adopted into the Olsen family, so I won't fight you for him. I just hope you won't be cruel to me. Please. She played the part of a helpless victim perfectly, casting me as the jealous, status-abusing villain trying to come between two people in love. That had always been her game. To everyone else, she was the pitiful, obedient little sister, constantly being bullied by me. But I knew better. I knew it was all a performance. In my past life, when she got pregnant with Eric's pup, she tried to use it to force me and Eric to break our bond, so she could become the Luna. But both my parents and the old Leakin King stood firmly against it. They exiled her to another pack. There, she found a new mate and lived a very happy life. She never loved Eric. She just wanted to take what I loved most just to spite me. If you and Eric love each other so much, I said, go ahead and form your bond. You're welcome to him. I'm giving him to you. Eric's voice rang out behind me, laced with mockery. Still playing hard to get, Elsa? You're really going all in, huh? I can't wait to see you crying and begging for me to mark you at the bonding ceremony next week. I ignored him. I turned and left without looking back. In the following days, I threw myself into preparations for the ceremony, arranging everything down to the smallest detail. Meanwhile, Audrey's Instagram was anything but quiet. She kept posting pictures of her and Eric together, on a Ferris wheel, hiking, camping, even dressed in wedding attire. Every romantic thing a couple could do, they did. And just in case I somehow missed it, Audrey made sure to call and personally remind me to check her feed. I found her antics tiresome and blocked her number. But a moment later, Eric called. Why did you block Audrey? He barked. She was heartbroken and tripped while walking. You better come over and apologize. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. If you don't, he continued threateningly, don't expect me to mark you at the ceremony 2 days from now. Sure, I said flatly. I'll be there soon. That's more like it. You better stay this obedient. If you don't, even after we bond, I'll end the relationship whenever I feel like it. He clearly thought he still had me under his thumb. I could hear the smugness in his voice through the phone. I hung up and blocked his number too, smiling coldly. Yes, I would go, but not to apologize. The old Leakin King had informed me that Sven's surgery had been a success. Before the bonding ceremony, we would publicly announce our relationship at our engagement party. Chapter 4. When I arrived at the Gilmore estate, Eric was standing at the gate, clutching Audrey's hand. The two of them sized me up with mocking eyes. Tsk, you say you won't choose me, but you're scared something might go wrong at the bonding ceremony in 2 days, huh? Eric sneered. So you had your parents pressure me into marking you during the engagement party instead? You plan to get marked early so you won't have to worry about any last-minute surprises, huh? Elsa, I actually thought you had a backbone, that you might really refuse to be my mate. But turns out, all those harsh words of yours were just empty bluffs. As soon as the words left his mouth, he gave me a hard shove. Caught off guard, I stumbled and fell. A railing scraped my leg, leaving a shallow cut. First, apologize to Audrey. Then write a statement promising never to bully her again. If you do, I'll dissolve the bond on the spot. Beside him, Audrey put on her usual helpless expression, playing the victim. Eric, it's okay, I'm not afraid of being bullied. As long as I can be with you. It doesn't matter if Elsa hits me or yells at me. I've gotten used to it. I'm just an adopted daughter of the Olsen family anyway. I just don't want her to drive me away. If that happens, I won't be able to see you again. Her pitiful tone made Eric even angrier. Heart aching, he grabbed her hand protectively, then turned to me and kicked me twice for her sake. That's for bullying Audrey. Apologize now or forget about being my mate. And don't even think about setting foot inside our house today. Tell your parents to stop trying to force me into marking you. I slowly stood, ignoring the pain, and looked them both dead in the eye. I told you I'm not choosing you as my mate. I've chosen someone else as my mate. Just as I turned toward the door, the old Leakin King appeared at the entrance. What's going on here? He asked sternly. Nothing, I said with a calm smile. Behind him stood Sven, dressed in a deep navy suit. He had recovered from his surgery, and was now able to stand, regal and composed. He radiated the commanding presence of a future alpha. But when he looked at me, his eyes softened with concern. His gaze dropped to my knee. Elsa, you're bleeding, he said. Took out a tissue and offered it to me. Eric froze for a moment, clearly unsettled by his brother's tenderness. Then he stepped in front of me as if claiming ownership. Sven, we haven't bonded yet. The engagement ceremony hasn't even started. She's not your sister-in-law. She's not your anything. There's no need to be so nice to her. She fell on her own. Serves her right. Then he leaned in and muttered in my ear, warning me, I'll let this slide today. But if you ever bully Audrey again, I won't forgive you. Looping his arm around mine, he added loudly, Come on. Our parents and all the guests are waiting. The engagement ceremony's about to begin. He was putting on a show of affection, but I knew better. This was nothing more than a territorial display, a message to Sven, she's mine. Back off. It was all just male ego. I gave a cold smile and pulled my arm away. Eric was as selfish as ever. He never loved me. All he cared about was securing the Leakin King's inheritance through our bond. Once he had it, he pushed me away with disdain, mocked me, ignored me, and humiliated me. The Leakin King's expression darkened. He stepped forward, took my hand, and placed it firmly into Sven's. Then he turned to Eric and said sternly, Eric, it's true that our family and the Olsens have a marriage agreement, but the one destined to bond with Elsa is your elder brother. From now on, when you see her, address her properly. She is your sister-in-law. Chapter 5. Eric stood frozen. He stared blankly at Sven and me, shaking his head in disbelief. No, that's impossible. Elsa is supposed to marry me. How could it be Sven? That can't be true. Dad, don't tell me you're conspiring with Elsa just to get my attention. He lunged toward us, trying to pull me away from Sven. But Sven's expression turned cold as he kicked Eric aside. Eric, show some respect. She's your future sister-in-law, the Luna. You bullied her just now. Once the engagement ceremony is over, we'll settle this. His firm words, spoken in my defense, warmed my heart. So this was what it felt like to be protected. The guests who had gathered to watch the commotion quickly pieced everything together. Oh my God, Elsa is marrying Sven? Gilmore family's youngest son gasped, covering his mouth in shock. She went from being Eric's fiancée to Sven's wife? How did this happen? The second brother echoed, equally stunned. Whispers rippled through the crowd. But hasn't Elsa been in love with Eric for years? Why is she marrying Sven instead? Could there be a mistake? If Elsa chose Sven, doesn't that mean he'll become the next Leaking King? Obviously. Only when he heard that did Eric finally panic. He rushed over and grabbed my hand. Elsa, don't you love me? Why are you marrying my brother? You're mad at me, aren't you? Because I made you apologize to Audrey? You don't have to anymore, okay? Just marry me. But I looked at his pleading face and felt nothing but disgust. He wasn't trying to win me back. Because he loved me. He just couldn't let go of the throne. Eric. Let her go. Sven gripped Eric's wrist with force. A cracking sound echoed as bones ground together. Eric stared at him, shocked. He didn't understand. In our previous life, by this time, Sven had already been on the brink of death. But now he had recovered. And Eric could clearly sense the dangerous aura of a fully awakened wolf radiating from Sven. Sven was healed. Elsa, you're just angry at me, aren't you? Angry that your birthday gift wasn't expensive enough? Angry I didn't spend enough time with you lately? Don't be mad. Please, I'll get you a new gift right now. There's no need to say you're marrying Sven just to get my attention. Eric still refused to accept it. He couldn't believe Elsa's choice had changed so drastically from their past life. I don't love you anymore, Eric, I said. I love your brother. He is the mate I've chosen. From now on, you will address me as your sister-in-law. I took Sven's hand and declared our relationship to everyone present. Eric lost it. Elsa, Sven is going to die soon. If you marry him, you'll be a widow in no time. He's been sick for years. His wolf is sealed away. You really want to marry him? He screamed while lunging forward, trying to drag me away. But the old Leaking King stepped in and kicked him hard. Pathetic. He had been worried, too, that Elsa might choose Eric. Among his sons, Eric was far from the most capable, and trusting the northern tribe to him would have been a grave risk. Fortunately, Elsa chose Sven. And even better, Sven had fully recovered. Guards, lock him in the cellar. Let him cool off. At his command, the Leaking Guard squad immediately dragged Eric out of sight. Finally, the chaos came to an end. The engagement ceremony proceeded smoothly. Under the gaze of all the guests, Sven slid the symbolic ring of mating onto my finger, and the old Leaking King formally announced that during the bonding ceremony, he would pass the title of Leaking King to Sven. Chapter 6. With only 2 days left until the bonding ceremony, I had been busy preparing every last detail. Seeing how exhausted I looked, Sven would often stop me with a worried frown and urge me to rest. There's a dedicated ceremonial team for this. They'll take care of everything, he'd say. But I always told him that a bonding ceremony only holds meaning if I personally looked into the arrangements. He'd smile softly, gently pat my head, his eyes filled with tenderness and affection. Only then did it truly sink in that Sven must have loved me all along. In my previous life, during the bonding ceremony between Eric and me, Sven had looked at me with that same deep, wistful gaze. Back then, I thought it was inappropriate. How could he stare so intently at his brother's mate? After he passed away, I read his journal. In it, he had written blessings for me, hoping I'd live a life of happiness and peace. At the time, I took it as nothing more than an elder brother's good wishes for his younger brother and his wife. But now I understand. He loved me. That's why, when I was reborn, I chose him as my mate. The bonding ceremony went ahead as planned. As the son of the Leaking King of the northern tribe, Sven's ceremony drew attention from packs far and wide. It was a grand spectacle. A red carpet unfurled across the entire field, and tulips, my favorite flower, lined both sides of the path. Among the arriving guests, many whispered behind my back. They all knew I'd spent over a decade hopelessly devoted to Eric, chasing him like a fool. So even now, as I was about to bond with Sven, they believed it was just a ploy to get Eric's attention. After all, everyone assumed Sven was gravely ill and didn't have much time left. They thought once he died, I'd marry Eric anyway. Furious, I wanted to confront them, but Sven gently patted my hand, signaling me to stay calm. Just as the ceremony was about to begin, Eric suddenly appeared, dressed in full groom's attire. To someone who didn't know better, It would seem like he was the groom today. The Leakin King's face turned cold instantly. How did he get out? Wasn't he locked in the cellar? Guards! Restrain him immediately. The Leakin guards moved forward, but Eric dodged frantically, shouting all the while. Elsa and I grew up together. We're childhood sweethearts. She said she loved me. Today should have been our bonding ceremony. We love each other. Why are you tearing us apart? The shamelessness in his voice as he claimed to love me made the Leakin King and my parents' expressions darken even more. I had already told them about Eric and Audrey's relationship. Now here he was blatantly trying to rewrite history. When I was a child, I liked many people, not just Eric, but also the boy next door. That's how kids express friendship, not love. If we're talking about mutual affection, it's between Eric and my stepsister, Audrey. They're the actual couple. With that, I sent out all the photos I'd collected from the past few weeks. Pictures of them traveling, hiking, and being together. My parents were furious and called Audrey over. She showed up, playing her usual pitiful role. Elsa, it's true I like Eric, but I always knew he loved you. Those pictures, it was just because I was feeling down and he took me out to cheer me up. There's nothing between us really. She was quick to cut ties. To her, Eric wasn't worth clinging to if he couldn't inherit the Leakin throne. Frankly, with his weak wolf form, marrying him wouldn't even compare to marrying an alpha from a smaller pack. Hearing her, Eric rushed to explain. Exactly. I was just helping Audrey. She's your family, of course I'd take care of her if she's feeling down. That's what a future brother-in-law should do, right? Elsa, I really love you. I've always loved you. I know I've neglected you before, but I'm sorry. Once we bond, I'll treat you right, I promise. Looking at his shameless face, I felt nothing but revulsion. To gain the Leakin throne, he'd stoop to any low, put on any mask. Sven stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. Eric, she is your sister-in-law. Show some respect. If you don't keep your distance, I won't hesitate to discipline you in front of everyone. Eric sneered. You? Discipline me? You're dying. How are you going to teach me a lesson? Your wolf sealed away. You don't even have your power anymore. The moment those words left his mouth, Sven's arm shifted into a powerful wolf arm. With one swift strike, he slapped Eric to the ground. The crowd gasped in unison. Chapter 7. No one had expected it. They all thought Sven was still weak and frail. They were not aware he had fully recovered, and that his wolf had awakened. And in the next breath he shifted. A towering, majestic white wolf stood proudly before them, golden eyes radiating dominance. Gasps filled the air. The last time anyone had seen Sven's shift was over a decade ago. Back then, he was still a smaller, less fearsome beast. Now he was terrifying in his magnificence. It took several long minutes for him to shift back to human form. The guests, once so sure he was on his deathbed, were visibly shaken. They nervously wondered if their earlier gossip had reached his ears. Eric stood frozen, pale with fear. I'll overlook your disrespect today, Sven said flatly. Only because you're my brother. But from now on, when you see Elsa, you'd better treat her respectfully as your sister-in-law. Eric nodded stiffly. Whatever hope he'd still clung to of bonding with me was now completely shattered. But his face twisted into a snarl as he turned to me with a cold laugh. Elsa, you're really something, he spat. So shallow and opportunistic. You chose my brother just because his health improved. You threw away everything we had for status. I actually laughed. His shamelessness was unbelievable. Unable to win me over, he now resorted to dragging my name through the mud. Yes, I can't compare to my brother, he continued bitterly. He awakened his wolf at 10. He's the strongest in the northern tribe. It's no wonder you chose him over me. But it's fine. I don't blame you. I'll love you silently from the shadows and protect you, even though you betrayed me. He even forced out 2 tears, as if I were the heartless villain. Sven scoffed. Eric, I won't let you slander my mate. Then he pulled out his phone and tapped a few times. Moments later, everyone's phones buzzed at once. Videos popped up. They were clips of Eric and Audrey locked in intimacy. The room fell into stunned silence. Eric's face went pale. So much for smearing my name. As you can all see, Sven said. Eric and Audrey are the ones in love. Why don't we use this occasion, our bonding ceremony, to celebrate theirs as well? He looked toward both families. With such videos now circulating through the packs, Audrey's reputation was done. No one else would take her. She glared at me with pale fury, as if I had ruined her life. But in the end, both families agreed. So after Sven and I completed our bonding ceremony, Eric and Audrey were also bonded. They were supposed to be in love, but the way they looked at each other was full of resentment. Eric blamed Audrey for costing him the Leaking King's inheritance. And Audrey, for all her scheming, had ended up with a man who had no real power. That night, Sven marked me as his own with gentle care. His eyes glistened red as he said, "Elsa, you're finally mine. You don't know how long I've loved you, but your eyes were never on me." He gave a bitter smile. "I had a dream once, where you took Eric as your mate. When I woke up, I never imagined you'd choose me instead. I'm so happy." My heart skipped. A dream? That might not have been a dream. Could it be Sven had been reborn too? But none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was that in this life, I had found my happiness.